Welcome to the Two Fat Guys in an Album podcast, your weekly dive into iconic albums and our search for the modern classics. In this episode, I repeat myself when I'm under stress. I repeat myself when I'm under stress. I repeat myself. That's right. We are discussing the 1981 King Crimson album Discipline. This is the reawakening of King Crimson after a 7-year hiatus, and we will talk about it frame by frame. Like what I did there?
I like it.
Yeah. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more album reviews, in-depth discussions, and music analysis from two fat guys who love talking about music, no matter the genre. I am Mike Blackburn. I'll be your host and narrator, and with me, as always, is the maestro of music, the siren of sound, the doctor of the diminished chord, Brek Hufnus. Welcome, maestro.
Greetings.
So we normally start these podcasts by kind of cleaning up any messes we left behind from last show.
Yeah.
And how do we do?
On aisle 4 right here.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if there's too much. I don't know if we have to clean up a lot of things. I kind of have some nuggets. So one of the interesting things. So last show we did Sparkle Horse and OK Computer by Radiohead.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the interesting things there was they actually recorded a song together, Wish You Were Here. They collaborated on a cover of Wish You Were Here for the movie Lords of Dogtown. And it was actually 99% Sparkle Horse that recorded it, but Tom York sang backup vocals from his hotel phone. So always that lo-fi bit for you there.
So
I thought that was interesting that we had that connection of two bands that we really didn't intend to. It was sort of an accidental pairing, and they've got some things in common. You had asked me about Tom York's vocal range.
Yes.
And I correctly said he was a tenor. Which is sort of the higher male voice. You could say countertenor if you want to really be more specific, but he's got a higher male voice. But what I didn't realize really what you were getting at is how does he sing so darn high?
Right.
and so in retrospect, he's using what you call falsetto, his falsetto voice.
So he's literally... So I don't
Yeah, right. So... You know,
So he's not singing in his own voice. He's intentionally singing higher.
Yes, that would be a fairly reasonable way of explaining it. So if you think of how opera singers sing, and classically trained singers,
Sure,
really powerful voices, and you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I mean, so they rarely sing in falsetto. Their vocal ranges are just like the center of their singing. And some people have, lower ranges and higher ranges and have larger ranges. It's what makes them great vocalists, is that ability. But in pop music, for lack of a better word, people use falsetto quite often. It's a very, very common. So you could think of, say... For those of you that go back, Tiny Tim on the ukulele would be somebody who famously always sang in a falsetto voice. And it's just that sort of lighter, thinner sound. Right. It doesn't have the same power of a full voice. And then Neil Young, I think, uses falsetto to great effect. Like whenever he wants to sound... Like when he wants to sound mean and angry, he sings in his normal full... chest voice is what it might technically be called. But when he wants to sound, I don't know.
Nasally?
Well, he's always kind of nasal, but just a little more frail, a little more vulnerable. And his voice, gets kind of light and thin and sometimes cracks a little bit. But that's part of his charm.
It is.
But he's using his falsetto. The amazing thing about Tom York is he doesn't get light and thin, really. He's like, his falsetto is amazing. Yeah, it's like a full-voiced falsetto that he has incredible control over. But that is the answer, a better answer to your question.
So I know, I heard an interview, and I don't know his name, but the lead singer of Disturbed.
Okay.
I heard him interviewed, and he actually talked about how much he works with a vocal coach.
Yes.
to get that range because
Mm-hmm.
he, goes up and down and all over the place. And I, you think about that with a musician that they may go to a coach, but
Right.
I never crossed my mind that a singer would have, not
Right.
a
rock
rock
singer.
singer would have a vocal coach.
Right. And those, yeah, exactly. And I guess it's one of the hidden things about rock music. Like these guys practice, they
Right.
warm up before they go on,
Yeah.
and they would destroy their voice if they didn't use it properly. And some of them do. But even someone like Freddie Mercury, who had an amazing voice, he had vocal issues. And really, anybody, and if you think about just, let's say you're doing 200 shows a year, that's going to wear on your voice even by that measure.
Well, Robert Plant and Steven Tyler. From,
Yes.
They have
Steven Tyler.
They have amazing ranges.
Yes. So that doesn't happen by accident. I don't think they were gifted that. I mean, they're certainly very talented in some regard, but they're also, if not highly trained in a classical sense, trained to develop their range and to preserve their voice and to use their voice in a way that doesn't damage it.
Yeah. We're through our first nugget.
2 nuggets.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long show.
Here, OK Computer.
Yep.
Is now as old as Abbey Road was when OK Computer came out.
Wow.
So between now and Abbey Road, OK Computer sits directly in the middle of that. This is just one of those fun facts that kind of puts time into perspective.
Makes you feel old. Yeah.
Makes you feel like crazy old. I have one. I have one from the Hall of Fame show. So I don't know when that show's gonna air.
Probably already has.
Yeah, but
our
Hall of Fame 45.
Yeah. The 45. Yes, you're right. So I don't know either. So
But
we did a mini.
We did a
We did a 45.
Yeah, if you've missed it, it's
A bonus episode.
a bonus episode about the Hall of Fame voting of 2025 and went over the nominees and whatnot. But you would ask me who was the only band that won the fan voting but was not inducted.
Yeah.
Since 2012, that's only happened once, and that band was Dave Matthews. So they had won the fan voting and did not get in 2020, and still didn't get in until just last year when they won the fan voting again. Yeah. And then Pat Benatar was the second place fan vote that year, and also did not get in. So just to clean up, a little bit on that.
Okay.
So those are my nuggets there.
Nice. So we have a huge topic kind of sitting in front of us with, Discipline by King Crimson. King Crimson, without even talking about an album, could be a whole show on themselves. We could just do the band show on them.
And for those of you listening on the podcast, just to let you know how this show's probably going to go, we're both wearing our Beat concert T-shirts. From when
big fans. Big
so
fans.
we both kind of like this band.
Before we actually get to the band necessarily, I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated by genre, but I think genre, the fascination really is by influences. How a band gets shaped by the music they've listened to, the music that's happening around them.
That's so weird because I said that.
Yeah,
I'm so glad.
I'm
so glad things are coming around.
Probably not.
I feel like I'm educating the masses here, but good. I agree.
So we've talked about kind of music scenes before. We talked about Dylan and what was going on in the Greenwich kind of music scene.
Sure.
And how that affected him and how he influenced people around him.
Right. Laurel Canyon's another hotbed of.
Yeah. So I bring that up because kind of one of the criticisms out there about Discipline is how much it sounds like a Talking Heads album. And so
Okay.
But what I'm more interested in, or what I would suggest here, is that both the Robert Fripp from King Crimson and Adrian Belew and Talking Heads were all part of the same New York music scene in the late 70s.
Right.
That sort of proto-punk, punk
yeah.
kind of music that was coming around. So the similarities is one kind of Adrian Belew kind of was on both sides of that fence, right?
Right.
And
performed with
Talking
Heads, just
sure.
to maybe add to that.
So the album that came out right around Discipline from Talking Heads is Remain the Light.
Mm-hmm. Big album.
Remain in Light. Remain in Light?
Remain in the Light?
No, that's only...
The light remains in...
Remain in Light.
Remaining Light.
Which was, a monster album for
yes.
them and probably is, a top 100 album in my book.
Mm-hmm.
But Elephant Talk off of this one, you can almost pick up and drop into a Talking Heads album. And I don't think that anybody was copying anybody. I think it's that, these bands all influence each other.
I mean, I think that's a very reasonable thing to think. That, first of all, if you're Adrian Belew and you're touring with Talking Heads, there's going to be influence. There's
sure.
going to be
yeah.
that. But, Adrian Belew there's a reason why Adrian Belew was touring with the Talking Heads.
Yeah.
Because he's awesome.
Right.
Before he went to the Talking Heads.
Absolutely.
So he played with Zappa. Awesome. That kind of awesomeness. So, but yeah, I agree. There's that sharing and that influence. A much better word than copying.
But it goes back. It goes up, and I'm sure David Burns, the Talking Heads, was influenced by
right, exactly.
Adrian Belew and Robert Fripp. Fripp did stuff with them as well.
Yes.
But the other bands that were in that scene at the time, just sort of to completely set the table. Patti Smith was a big part of that proto-punk punk kind of scene. She was there. Blondie was there.
Right.
Suicide, Television, and the Fleshtones. And so you're talking about proto-punk, punk, kind of the beginnings of new wave, and my favorite, no wave.
That's possibly the dumbest. Well, it's not. We've had dumber, but...
No wave?
I don't get it. I don't understand.
Do you know no wave?
I've heard of it, yes. Yeah. I've never thought it was worth looking
and this is,
into.
Everybody looked this up. I'm not.
It exists. You're not making it up.
But the band, the band that's at front and center in the no wave thing is Teenage Jesus and the Jerks.
Right. They don't get their own genre. I'm sorry.
But
they don't get their own genre.
That band is so great. They would do 10-minute shows. They would come out and just do 10 minutes and leave.
That's great. How much did that show cost?
I don't know, but it's awesome. The whole thing is awesome. And listen to it. They're kind of very light structure, very avant-garde. I'm sure Yoko Ono would have been right there cheering them all on. I don't know. It's an interesting kind of group.
So Adrian Belew, because we've talked about Talking Heads and everything, and like you said, they sound like each other.
Yeah.
Adrian Belew played on that album.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a reason why that album sounds like King Crimson, because it had the same guitar player on it.
Right. But the vocal stylings.
And that's where I was going to go next. And again, I think it's part of that scene. David Byrne and Adrian Belew I agree, have similar vocal stylings, but it's part of that entire scene. A lot of people had those vocal stylings. So I would point to even Devo and the Cars. That was sort of the new wave sound. There are many people that sang in that style.
But it's also song structure. Elephant Talk is very much... Like I said, you could pick up Elephant Talk and drop it right into Talking Heads.
Sure,
it's that kind of.
Well, when I think of the Talking Heads, I don't think of any of those genres that you discuss. I think that they're sort of a world music type of band. They definitely have a lot of funk in their style and a lot of layered rhythms like African rhythms and Afro-Cuban rhythms and things like that. And I think those rhythms also appear in King Crimson. So you're hearing that same. You're hearing that same. Vibe, I guess, like you're saying, but neither band invented that. They're pulling them from other sources, and there's tons of funk bands that layer, but it's sort of a world music sound that I like from, I think of Talking Heads, just the multiple percussions type thing, and then the bass and percussion, type of sound too.
Yeah, totally.
So,
totally.
but do they sound? Is there a similarity? Yes. There is, and I agree that I think there's influences, but I also agree it's similar because it has some of the same people performing on it, and they actually perform together. So it's kind of silly to I think it's a silly criticism when you say some people. People criticized Phil Collins for sounding like Peter Gabriel. So people are going to say stupid things all the time, and then when Phil Collins took over as the lead singer of Genesis, he was immediately criticized for sounding too much like Peter Gabriel. And then Peter Gabriel went, he still continued like his solo career and everything, but then he hit it big with So. Right? And then people criticized him for sounding too much like Phil Collins. Yeah. So I think from a critical standpoint, it's a silly thing. But yes, there are similarities, and you can definitely draw connections between the bands.
Well, and I was just bringing this more to the point of like, even with kind of Dylan and Greenwich and whatever, it's those influences really advanced music by them kind of working.
It's a community of musicians.
Yes.
Right.
And how fantastic that is. And so if you have similar sounds, it isn't anybody copying anybody else. It's the scene, Yeah,
I agree.
It's the vibe of the scene. So
totally agree with that.
If anybody goes back and listens to this album, or we motivate somebody to kind of dig into a little bit into King Crimson, if you stumble across these, and I'll even talk when we kind of look at these songs a little bit about what I hear.
Yeah, and you could go, it might be, and again, if you're trying to make connections, you could say, hey, if you like the Talking Heads, you might like this album as well.
At some point, we will probably do Remain in Light.
I'm certain of it, yeah.
All right. You got anything else before we dive in?
No, I think that's it. That
was easy.
All right. We're wearing the same T-shirt for this show.
Well, and you were talking about kind of that global influence or whatever, that world influence, and I couldn't help but stare at the shirt because
it has an elephant on
it. So after Discipline, the next album was Beat, which was
that hence the name of the album. Right.
And there's a lot of even the names of some of these songs are kind of definit's world. You got a Japanese song. And
there's definitely a world influence.
Absolutely.
I will say this shirt, in my opinion, Hall of Fame concert T-shirt. The design of this shirt is I love.
There were four of us there, and I think three of us bought the same shirt.
The exact same shirt. It was the winner.
Yeah. It does have all the show dates and whatever on the back. I mean, it's a perfect concert shirt.
And the personnel and everything.
Right. It's just if you're designing concert shirts, look up the Beat shirt. It's the perfect concert shirt.
I think so.
And when we do our world tour, we will do something similar.
We'll wear the Beat shirt.
Right.
But we'll put two fat guys on the bottom.
Beat the two fat guys.
Yeah. No, don't do that. All right, we'll workshop that.
All right, with that, let's drop the needle on side one.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rock. In the red corner, an album that needs no introduction, an unranked contender. This prog rock masterpiece was released in 1981, performed by King Crimson, and featuring some of the finest musicians in the land: Robert Fripp, Adrian Belew, Tony Levin, and Bill Bruford. This is Discipline. And in the blue corner, two fat guys. This is Two Fat Guys and an Album.
Discipline, King Crimson, 1981. Let's, so why don't we begin with kind of talking about this all-star band.
It is an all-star band. Yeah, super band, right?
Right, so we chewed a little bit on Adrian Belew.
Adrian Belew, who, by the way, I thought this was going to come up earlier, but he had a brush with fame.
He did.
This past week.
He
got to meet Chauncey at a cocktail party.
Yes, so our producer Chauncey was at a cocktail party. This is how we decided to do this album.
Right, we were inspired by that.
We were thinking of something else, and all of a sudden Chauncey's in Nashville. And attended a party, and there's Adrian Belew. So sent me a picture. You know, we get Chauncey and Adrian Belew in a picture.
That's pretty cool.
Stunned both of us
completely.
Why aren't we there? Why is Chauncey there?
Quick.
How much are we paying?
Find a plane ticket.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and for all reports, I'm happy to say, is Adrian Belew seems to have been a completely nice guy.
Yeah.
And just I think Chauncey's capable of talking someone's ear off at times, and
I think he met his match.
So they seem to get along really well, and he seemed to just from reports. It's always nice when you and honestly, most of the time, all these when I get to meet people that are famous in some way, they almost always turn out to be pretty decent people, and he turned out to just be very nice.
And Chauncey is definitely not a contemporary of this music.
Right.
So I think Adrian Belew was pretty impressed that he knew a little bit about music too, because he listens to a smart podcast.
That's it. That's exactly it. Two fat men and an album. Listen to us, and maybe you'll meet Adrian Belew.
Yeah. It's a much longer shirt.
It is.
Yeah. And the wrong name.
Still working on it.
Fat guys. All right.
So the band.
So Adrian Belew.
So Robert Fripp. Well, Adrian Belew. Since we'll just wrap it up with him. Rolling Stone 118th top guitarist.
Really?
Yes, and probably deserves better than that. But he's phenomenal.
Really?
Yeah. Are you surprised on what end of that are you surprised?
So I will have to say that I struggled. So I enjoy. Very much enjoyed this album, not to skip too far ahead. But one of the most interesting things I found on this album, so you have like two guitar players and a third guy who's playing something that could be a guitar, could sound like, I don't know. So the only sound I knew that I could actually point every time and say that's him playing is the drums.
Yeah.
Okay,
we'll start with that. Can we come back to it? Let's because it's a great point, and but then we'll never name the people in
right.
the band.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Adrian Belew, 118 Rolling Stone top guitarist, as we mentioned before, played with Talking Heads, played with Bowie, played with Zappa, and for people who don't know, Frank Zappa is well known in the industry for being a super demanding band leader who only hires the absolute best. And I think I'm not going to be able to pull a name now, and I don't want to say the wrong guy, but like one of your guitar heroes, like I want to say it's Steve Vai, but I think Steve Vai actually did play with Zappa. But somebody on that level was invited to play with Zappa and turned him down because he didn't want to go through the audition process, and he didn't want to go through just the whole thing. He didn't feel like he was good enough to play in the band, and was just like, thanks, but no thanks. I mean, that's how demanding Frank Zappa is. So if you say you are a made man if you played with Frank Zappa. And then, he did 20 solo albums, which may be worth checking out. I have to admit, I've not listened to any Adrian Belew solo albums. But he also performed with Tom Tom Club. He performed with Laurie Anderson. As you said, his sounds are really interesting, and so are Fripp's. Robert Fripp. Let me just get back to Robert Fripp, I guess, because we're going to always get pulled into this sound discussion.
Right.
But Robert Fripp is really the band leader and the only constant member of King Crimson from day one. Yeah. So he's the guy that's the only person that's been the only member of King Crimson.
Consistent.
Right. He played with Blondie, who you mentioned earlier. Yep. And again, this cross-pollination. He played with Bowie. Brian Eno, whose name, by the way, keeps popping up. I don't know if you've noticed this or not. Yeah. But when you're talking about music of this era, Brian Eno...
is he the recording or producing it?
He's the producer. Recording and producing it. He's a major figure in this and super influential.
And also on the list for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Brian Eno?
He's on the...
Should already be in.
Yeah.
I mean, quite honestly.
He's either on the ballot or went in last year, but it's very recent.
I mean, he should definitely be in as a producer. You know, there's no question about that.
But his albums were... I mean, he had some top-selling albums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. It was great.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bassist or Chapman Stick player is Tony Levin. I'm sorry. Did I mention Robert Fripp, Rolling Stone 59 guitar player?
Yeah.
Okay, so when we're talking about supergroups, it's a supergroup. Tony Levin, Rolling Stone 42 bassist, probably way overrated or underrated rather.
Underrated,
he's way more better than that.
way
more better than that. Most known for playing with Peter Gabriel.
Yeah.
So he's Peter Gabriel's number one guy. He had his own group called Stickmen. He played Liquid Tension Experiment is another of his bands, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with. They're similar to King Crimson in their it's kind of jazz, whatever box you put King Crimson in, you might put this group in. It's really a terrific band. Toured with Paul Simon, James Taylor, Peter Frampton. All these guys are session guys. Like you could, the list of albums that they've appeared on, there's not time to just say their accomplishments in music. And then the drummer, who you could tell was hitting a drum, was Bill Bruford. And again, Rolling Stone has him at 16. You could make an argument he's better than that.
Oh my God, God status.
Yeah,
drummer.
Absolutely. Member of Yes.
Yes. And weirdly left Yes to come to King Crimson right at the release of Close to the Edge.
Yeah.
I mean, like their biggest album.
Right.
Or one of their best albums. He left. So that could only tell you the dysfunction within Yes at this point in time.
Yeah, I think Bruford's a funny guy also. I think he seems to, and he also played with Genesis, by the way, post Peter Gabriel, I believe. No, I think he's got a PhD in music, by the way, that he got fairly recently, maybe in the last 10 years.
You just walk in and say you're Bill Bruford, don't they just hand that to you?
No, but I think he's you know how Neil Peart also was a kind of guy who just very cerebral and was always getting better and always looking for ways to improve. I think Bill Bruford's a smart guy and a really
yes. So we're not there yet, but Adrian Belew talks about the writing of frame by frame, which is really about overthinking.
Yes,
and so we'll get there. There's only 7 songs on this album, so we'll probably go through all 7.
Yeah.
And he talks about it, and so that's kind of the general thing. It's about overthinking. But it's because he said, like, him and Tony Levin would go out and do, like, normal things during the day, go to eat or whatever.
Right.
And they'd come back in, and Bruford and Fripp were still having, like, the same discussions about, sound tempo or some weirdly in-depth piece of,
like I said, very cerebral, very thoughtful.
Be like our wives when dealing with us,
Probably very similar.
Yeah. We're having the same argument for like 40 hours.
Yes. I can see that.
That's interesting. All right. So, do you want to do the instruments first, or?
Well, you had asked about sounds.
Yeah. All right. Let's.
So, okay. All right. So I myself had the same experience. Like we were watching this live,
right?
But except it's Adrian Belew, Tony Levin, Danny Carey from Tool, and Steve Vai taking the role of Robert Fripp. So technically,
and
a
band called the Beat.
Yeah,
Beat.
so they didn't bill themselves as King Crimson. I'm assuming Robert Fripp
would frown on that.
So, yeah, I had the same experience in that I thought there were keyboards on this album. You know, like when you listen to the album and to see that all of these sounds came from guitars was shocking to me. Like, had I not seen this performance, I would not have thought that.
Yeah.
So, yes, I had the same thought.
Well, all right. So, the Chapman Stick.
Yeah, the Chapman Stick is Tony Levin, Tony Levin plays.
How many strings?
Well, there can be a variety. There's different varieties of Chapman Sticks. I think they go from 8 to... I'm going to look it up.
And
so
you
a
don't
10-string,
pluck it, you tap it?
Yes. So Chapman Stick, invented by Emmett Chapman in 1969. Yeah. I mean, that goes back actually a little bit. And
but not that far. I mean, if you're talking about an album in 81, it's only...
Yeah, it's a modern... It's not a violin. I mean, it's...
that could be a T-shirt. It's not a violin.
So on Discipline, he played a 10-string Chapman Stick. And yes, you play it by tapping. And if you're not sure what tapping means, you're not strumming the guitar. Yeah. You're pressing the strings down. If you play guitar, you might know it also as a hammer-on. You get sound by pressing down on the string, and it just creates that tone. And so you can play this instrument a little bit like a piano in that you have all your fingers available to play all different notes, rather than...
They're like rubbing the guitar when...
You're not rubbing it, you're pressing it down. You're
well,
pressing down the strings.
You see people like waka waka.
What people?
I knew you were going to go with that.
All right. But yeah, so since each finger can actually play a different note, it's played a bit in the sense sort of like a piano. You press the string down on the fretboard and it sounds the tone. The Chapman Stick actually the whole thing is a fretboard. It's like a stick if you imagine a guitar without the body of the guitar, and it's, as we said, it's 10 strings, so it's fairly thick, and you can play you play bass notes and other notes.
So this is going to be my total ignorance, but
yeah,
the body of the guitar, isn't the fact that it's hollow makes the reverb sound, or is that just an acoustic guitar?
It's an electric instrument. So the Chapman, right. If you're playing an acoustic guitar, you have a hollow. You have an
so this
opening.
Is an electric. It's
an electric instrument.
Right,
it's amplified. It's
gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
So yes. So and just to again, Eddie Van Halen, probably known for tapping, probably the most popular guy tapping around. Steve Hackett from Genesis claims to be the first person recorded. Yeah. And I know you make this face about Steve Hackett, which I don't understand, but he goes, but this Return of the Giant Hogweed in 1971 used tapping techniques. Stanley Jordan is a kind of a jazz guy that we saw
Tom
live.
Morello. The guy who goes waka waka.
Yeah, that's not tapping.
Right.
Okay.
Well, he's like rubbing. Wow.
He doesn't call it that either, I don't think.
Waka waka.
None of those. Tom Morello, I think Tom Morello lives in Illinois and is close enough to come punch you in the face if you keep it up.
Somewhere between Tom Morello and Fozzie Bear.
Yeah, right.
Right. Yeah. All right.
Moving
on.
So, anyways, Stanley Jordan's another guy I think of. But that's the tapping thing. That's the Chapman Stick.
Okay.
And Stickmen, one of Tony Levin's bands, was actually a bunch of guys playing that. And you must really like the Chapman Stick a lot to sit through that concert.
Well, so weirdly, after Tony Levin and I guess Bruford left the band, Robert Fripp brought in another Chapman Stick.
Yes, right.
No,
because it's
so he must really like that.
Well, first of
sound.
all, you can't play like the sounds of these albums can't be played on a different instrument.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to, if you're going to cover any of these songs, you have to have a Chapman Stick guy.
Fair.
Here's an interesting one, and you'll have to listen to it. Maybe it'll. The intro to Elephant Talk, the very beginning of it, sounds like two guitars playing. It sounds like a bass and a guitar. It's not. It's Tony Levin playing the Chapman Stick. It's a Chapman Stick solo. Right. So you're. I know. So that's an interest. So if you listen to the beginning of Elephant Talk, that's the sound of the Chapman Stick, and it's one person playing.
So now you have a guitar god in Adrian Belew.
Yes.
Who also does very innovative stuff.
Yep.
Trying to make it sound like anything but a guitar.
Exactly.
You have Tony Levin who can play keyboards on a stick or something.
Well, it's not a keyboard; it's a Chapman Stick.
But
because
he can make it sound like anything.
Yes.
He sound like a guitar, sound like a bass.
At the same time.
Sound like percussions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he did play. Just to clarify, he did play keyboard, bass at times.
And we're not even getting to the weirdest guy yet. And then you have Robert Fripp and Frippertronics.
Frippertronics. Yep. Frippertronics is actually amazing to me.
It's some sort of loop thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So where do you want to start? So Frippertronics. Like, I don't know if you want to start with Frippertronics. Actually, you would ask me about layering. So
I really didn't understand what he was doing because he's like soloing with himself, playing some sort of something else in the background that he played before.
That's exactly what he's doing. Yeah, you're sharp as a tack.
Wow.
That's exactly what he's doing.
I was just spitballing that totally. All right, go on.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's correct. That's what he's doing. So now, these are you would consider these looping. You create a bass sound, and then you loop that sound over and over. It could be a 10-second bit of music or a 4-second bit of music. And so when you hear that sort of, this album's been called minimalist, and minimalism in classical music refers to this sort of repetitive thing happening over and over again. So you're hearing tape loops, basically, or looping,
Yeah.
And then so you lay down that loop, you record it, and then you play over it. So you're playing again your own. Exactly as you said it. You said it. You're dead on. The cool thing about Frippertronics, which he invented along with guess who, Brian Eno, was analog at the time.
Yes. Well, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, this goes back a long way before you had
digital pedals and things.
Yeah.
No, this is incredible. So he had literal analog tape, like reel-to-reel tape, and it would so he would record onto this reel-to-reel, and create an actual literal tape loop.
That's crazy.
And then play on top of that. And I don't know, it had 2 reel-to-reels, so I think he could layer it 2 things probably. You could record to one and record to the other and then play above it. So you could essentially have 3 things going on at the same time.
Wow.
And I don't know if he had the ability to bounce one of those recordings, meaning record something on both tape loops and then take, say, tape 2 recording and put it along with tape 1. So tape 1 is playing 1 and 2, and then that frees up another one to play. So I'm not sure if it actually had that capability.
I know, but it's all.
But
just
it does
nuts.
go back to when we were talking about like 4 tracks and 8 tracks and 20 track things, and but yeah, to be able to do so nowadays, there are digital pedals that do that, and it's very common. I've been to establishments having a beverage, and there might be a guy performing there. And he just does it. So I mean,
well, like Ed Sheeran does a whole plays music just by himself. He just adds things and loops things.
Yeah, you'll see right.
But we went. I don't even know if you remember this.
I do.
But it always
I do.
blew me away. We saw a tuba guy who was doing.
Well, but who was he opening for?
Who was the tuba guy opening for? I don't remember.
Buckethead.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was a tuba guy that was doing the exact same thing. So he was playing tuba with digital pedals.
Tubatronics?
Tubatronics, and
nice.
creating the same thing. I mean, yeah, it's really innovative, but it's been around.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I get it, but it's easier to do now than when he started doing it.
It's much easier to do it now. For sure.
So that's an amazing group of musicians.
Yep.
So we can't kind of leave it there, though, because when you talk about King Crimson, King Crimson changes musician. This was this iteration of King Crimson, which was like a 3 or 4 album.
3 albums. So you had Discipline, which was the one we're talking about today in 1981. It was followed by Beat in 1982. That was the first time ever that 2 King Crimson albums had been put out in a row with the same personality. And then they did 3 of a Perfect Pair, the third of the trilogy, I guess, in 1984. Discipline, the red album, Beat, the blue album,
and
3 of a Perfect Pair, the yellow album. And all 3 of those had the exact same lineup.
Right.
But previous to that, they changed. Yeah.
So probably there's 2 big kind of things that I would struggle with, or that I think I need to address. One is I always talk about kind of genre, and you have King Crimson. What genre do they fit in?
No, I don't care.
I know. So I'll just talk to the audience.
So this is but this is what I like about them as well. Is like they are genreless. They don't. I'll give them world music. I think they're prog. They can be a prog rock, like an extension of prog rock, I suppose. But I think there's jazz, and there's certainly jazz influences.
So and it also depends on
influences.
The band, right? So what I was going to say was I think they're a genre unto themselves. King Crimson is just King Crimson. There's a sound that kind of is it, but it's just them. And prog might be something you can class. If there is a Land of Prog where all the prog bands live, somewhere in that Land of Prog there's an inland sea, and in the middle of that inland sea there's an island, and that island is King Crimson. So I don't tend to think of them.
They have an album called Islands. Is that where you're going with this?
Okay. It wasn't. So how I think of King Crimson, because as you mentioned, the band changes all the time.
Yep.
I think of them more as like, not as like iterations or different eras, because I think that's too hard to kind of grasp. But I think
it's super easy to grasp. Go on.
I think of them as like a mountain range.
No, this is much simpler.
Right.
Yeah, no, go ahead. This makes right. Why would you think of there's these early 70s King Crimson and then the 80s King Crimson?
There's not. There's
This is way simpler.
King Crimson has gone on for 50 years, and there's this long mountain range, and there's certain kind of named peaks in this mountain range that kind of stand out, that really kind of differentiate the eras, if you will. And you have Court of the Crimson King in 1969, Greg Lake, totally different sound, right?
Yep.
That was and that's where I found them, because I'm kind of a, I think the pinnacle of Western civilization is The Lord of the Rings by Tolkien. And so here was this sort of...
okay, we're going to have to start a book podcast now, but go ahead.
And so I love the fantasy kind of thing. And here's this Court of the Crimson King, which seems to be this...
It's very elaborate.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, it kind of just fit in with everything I love.
Sure. No, it's a great album.
But then, that kind of blew up. And sort of the next peak is Red in 1974.
So can I, when you say, I'm just for clarification, and I'm digressing a bit.
Yep.
When you say it blew up,
well, they're no longer together. People left the band.
They just moved on. It's like one super group after another, quite honestly. Because even
back then, like different named peaks.
I know this. Go ahead.
So
No, I get it. It's like a visualization.
Right.
Maybe you're just very visual.
Well, and it's also interesting how these other people kind of come and go, which is, I think, where you're kind of going, and how they end up together and things. So,
Right.
So you have Greg Lake of Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Right.
Kind of was the main singer, the front man, whatever, for Court of the Crimson King.
Yep.
And then that next kind of name peak in my mountain range of King Crimson is Red in 1974, which is Bruford.
Okay.
Fripp, of course, and John Wetton.
Okay.
Who was with King Crimson for a couple albums and then went on to form Asia. In the heat of the moment.
Yeah, well
Asia,
done.
About the same time as
I had it without that,
coming.
but I'm sure everybody else appreciates it.
And weirdly had Palmer of Emerson, Lake and Palmer was in Asia.
Yes.
So it's kind of weird how they all kind of intertwine there. And then the next main kind of big peak in the King Crimson mountain range is Discipline. And then I would say the final peak is so Discipline is 1981, so we go 69, 74, 81.
Yeah, they took some time off.
And then the last kind of main peak in my book is Power to Believe in 2003.
Yeah, which I have not. I actually lost interest after this.
So that actually has the final kind of what I think is one of your more favorite is kind of the suite of Lark's Tongue and Aspect.
Oh, yes. It has the third.
It has the fifth.
Or the fifth? Okay.
The fifth kind of movement, if you will.
Yes.
Look at me.
Which they've spread across 50 years or whatever.
40, at least 40 years at that point. Yeah. So that's what I think. And again, you got Trey Gunn on that album, who's playing the Chapman Stick.
Yeah, I don't know what to make. That seems like an awful lot of work to me. But if it helps you keep it organized, it's fine.
Across all of those, I think still the best thing about them is live.
Okay.
I think if you start listening to some of these albums and you like them,
yeah,
there are no better versions of some of these songs than the live versions. And the live album of this era, so from the
beat, the 80s, early 80s,
right, is Absent Lover.
Okay.
Which was recorded in 1984, so the end of the trilogy, kind of.
With the same personnel.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was the last time this group, Bruford, Levin, Fripp, and Belew, played together. It was recorded in Montreal, but it wasn't released until 1998. But it's Absent Lover is the live album. It's phenomenal. And they have several live albums out that I think are the best versions of some of their songs.
Cool.
Yeah. So
check
that's
that out.
That's a total side rant.
So I have no specific knowledge of this, but my shorter and less complicated version of what you just said is Robert Fripp calls up a bunch of people that he knows and likes and wants to play with and says, hey, let's make an album. And then he calls up another group of people, and then he calls up another group of people, and that's
well. That. But I think he's probably hard to work with. I mean,
I would think so.
He's
probably a perfectionist.
He calls himself like the creative something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know, and I've heard stories, and I've no verification of this, but he gave Bruford rules for playing.
Yeah, I would think so.
Because Bruford is kind of...
Well, he's his own guy.
So just, and it was all play less.
Right.
And if there's an opening in a song, there's three other guys who want to fill that opening. Don't.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're the band leader, that's you have the right to do that. I think that... I actually think that's fairly normal, but perhaps... Yeah, I mean, you always have these tremendously talented people, and they have to make room for each other as well. It's sort of like a basketball team with 3 point guards on it in some regards. I mean, only one person gets the ball at a time.
Yeah.
So, you're navigating that, and
All right, so we chewed up like 20 minutes talking about the band, and we haven't even gotten to the album yet. So let's talk. There's only 7 songs on them.
Yeah.
They're kind of monumental.
First one's Elephant Talk.
Elephant Talk. I like the music here, and like I said, kind of in the first part of the show, I think you could pick it up and drop it right into a Talking Heads.
Yeah, it's very
album.
accessible. The one thing I'll say about this album, not to cut you off, sorry, is I think even though it's very progressive, I think it's really progressive music. I think it's also very accessible. And
it's hard. No,
you think you go the other way?
This is a very. So this album, I knew Court of the Crimson King, and I like Court of the Crimson King.
Well, it's completely different.
And then,
knowing how you treated Sting, I'm surprised you even listened to it at all.
You and a buddy of ours, were all like gobbledygook over this album. And I listened to it and was like, "What are you people?"
Right, kind of like your reaction to Bruce Hornsby's Deep Sea Vents.
No, that is awful and will be awful and will continue to be awful. But this, it took me a while to wrap my head around this. I don't think Elephant Talk. I'm a lyrics guy, and this is just nonsense. This is him going through the alphabet.
No, but that's poetic genius.
But it's. I mean, there's no point to it.
There's no story, but no. Well, you're using. I mean, I think it's poetic gymnastics in some regard.
Okay.
But I love the lyrics to it actually, and the idea of we have a whole set of songs about lyrics about talking and synonyms for talking that begin with A, and the next verse is B.
Right? It's silly.
Now
words that start with D.
It's whimsical, yes.
It's a
and you have a guitar, that sounds like an elephant.
But it's also and it's ridiculous musicianship. Across all of this kind of silly nonsense.
Yeah,
it's phenomenal. So it took me a while to kind of get there.
Okay.
But love the song. They played it in the beat. I was totally jazzed when they played
it's one of my favorite songs. Like there would have been torches and pitchforks if they didn't play this song.
And then following the Elephant Talk is Frame by Frame, which is far and away my favorite. Well, almost my favorite. It's hard. It's a really good song, and it's like crazy, like dual guitar thing going on there, and it seemed like to me that like Fripp and Belew kind of changed who was leading and who was playing the background.
Yes.
And it's like some kind of crazy pace.
So we didn't. Well, go on. I'm just saying we didn't finish talking about instruments. But it'll come up, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm going to.
So this is like this kind of crazy sort of pace. So the only way to describe it as a non-musician is like. It's like driving fast in a car, and you got the engine noise and the tire noise and the exhaust noise, and it's all kind of making this rhythm together, but it's flying.
Yeah.
And it's just a pure power song.
Yeah,
and sounds remarkably like Rush of that era too. But I'm just going to let that slide.
Yeah, I don't think it's sure. I don't think I'm not listening to it going, oh, that's Rush. I hear them as an extension of
You will
Rush.
never not be able to say, oh, that sounds like Rush. No,
right.
Now that I said that out loud.
Right. But like I said, I think when I had first said that prog rock perhaps ended with Rush, this is on the whatever album we did a long time ago.
Moving
Pictures.
This still hold true.
This would have been my exemption to that. Except for the iteration of King Crimson, perhaps they made it happen one more time. But I think this is far more advanced also.
So that's I love that song.
Yeah.
And then you have Matse Kunze?
Mate Kudasi.
Whatever. A Japanese something.
If you sing along with it, that's. I'm just going by the.
But it's a very, very different kind of. And I'm wondering if it sounds Adrian Belew-y, and if Adrian Belew-y is an adjective now, and I'm wondering if this was their attempt at a radio song.
Well, it was a single.
Yeah.
They did have 2 singles, and Mate Kudasi was one of them. I don't think they had a ton of radio success with any of them.
Yeah.
The album, by the way, did chart, though. It was a 41 in UK and a 43 in the US. So it wasn't ignored. But, although it's not by any means a pop album,
right?
People found it.
Art rock?
Yeah, I think so. I like art rock a lot.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know.
Mate kudasi is Japanese for wait, please.
Yeah.
And it's more of a peaceful song, right?
It is.
Yeah,
it's very
quieter,
kind of
peaceful.
low.
So
and then
in Discipline, which I love.
Yeah. Well, it's Bruford off the leash.
Yeah.
For the amazing amount of restraint you hear of Bruford in the previous song, which I'm not going to now try and pronounce.
Right.
In Discipline, he's just nuts.
Yeah, and I love the lyrics to it. By the way, I think Belew wrote the songs. I think he was the lyricist for all of the songs. Do you know what In Discipline is about, inspired by? Adrian Belew's wife was a sculptor, and she sent him a letter talking about a sculpture.
I thought it was a painting.
It could be a painting.
Yeah.
I assumed it was a sculpture. But it translates to just the idea of the song is sort of about artistic obsession, trying to get things just right, and just kind of going through the creative process. Like the wife was describing what she was doing, and he basically just turned it into a song.
Right. Well, taking out all the references to the painting or the piece
anything
of art or
specific.
whatever it was.
He generalized it, and I love this song, and this is where I repeat myself.
Yeah. Exactly.
Line comes from.
Right. From our opening here.
Yeah.
But Bruford is insane in this.
Yeah.
Where that God level
they must
performance.
have locked Fripp up in a closet when they recorded it.
Right. It's phenomenal. And then after that is Thela Hunjinjit.
Did you listen to the album? Because they say the words.
I know. But I actually
Thela
phonetically
spelled
wrote
it out
these
for yourself?
so I could say it, and I still can't
How's that
pronounce
working
it.
out
Not
for you?
poorly. Go on.
I mean, I just pronounce it the way they sing it. Thela Hunjinjit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is an anagram for heat in the jungle.
Right. And it took me a while I saw that too, and then I had to figure out what an anagram was.
Just went down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. Now suddenly I'm off in language.
Yes.
But there's a recording in the middle of this, or the Adrian Belew's piece is him talking about the story about it, anyways. And I don't know how true this is.
I think it's completely true. If you're going to say what
Fripp,
I think,
is Fripp sent Belew out into the streets to
right. The song was already conceptualized.
Music.
That they were going to write a song about violence in the city.
Right.
And he was
he was
trying
jungle,
to get the concrete jungle kind of a thing.
So that's the heat of the jungle. They're talking about the concrete jungle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he was trying to work on vocal, like they had certain pre-planned lines made, and darn it, it's escaping me right now. Can you pull the main lyric from that right now? If not, don't worry about it. But
so sent him out with a tape recorder.
This is a very dangerous place.
Right.
I think I would not want to live here, I think is the line. This is a very dangerous place. I would not want to live here. And he had a gun to my head.
Yeah, there was something.
So
about
there's
a gun,
that. Yeah. So the line is something like, he had a gun to my head. This is a very dangerous place. I wouldn't want to live here. And that's a line that they had made up for the song. But he wasn't getting the sound that they wanted. So he said, hey, take the recorder, go outside, maybe get some ambient noise, maybe get some traffic noise in there. And he's reading his lines out loud
into a tape recorder.
And
stumbled upon a couple of guys who were wondering what he was doing recording and if he was a cop.
Exactly.
And basically harassed him.
Yes.
And scared the crap out of him.
Yes.
And then he comes back in and tells them the story. And as he's
the actual story,
he's just telling his buddies what just happened to him.
Yes.
And Fripp was having it recorded.
Yeah, he signaled to record it.
And that is what's in the song.
That's genius.
Yeah, sort of.
What do you mean, sort of?
I mean, it's sort of, creepy now.
Well, I think it's genius.
Yeah.
I think,
No.
You know, I mean, I think he.
So it's his real experience.
Yeah, he wasn't acting.
Right.
He was. They got his full real experience, all the emotion of that, and.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Adrian Belew has confirmed that story exactly. So.
Yeah, and again, musically, I think you put this and drop it right in "Remain in Light," the Talking Heads album of the era, and it would fit perfectly.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the last two songs on the album are instrumentals.
Right.
"Sheltering Sky" is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, and I think my understanding is this was also a Bruford inspired piece. Like I think he got to use some of his
very
extensive percussion.
And you're going to be like all up in my
grill
about this, but I mean, I think there's a lot of like jazz fusion influences in this. I wouldn't be surprised if we walked into the Green Mill and somebody was playing this.
I would, but because they would need a Roland GR300 guitar synth. And they would need a Frippertronics machine.
But it's that vibe, man.
Yeah.
But
this is the other part of the instrument conversation.
That'd be interesting if you said Bruford did it. I'll let you get to that.
Yeah.
Because he seems like, and this, on Sheltering Sky, he seems way in the background.
Right. I think my understanding is not that he wanted to play like a maniac, but that he just wanted to bring in all these percussive sounds and interesting, again, world music type sounds into it. It wasn't about showing off his chops. It was more about creating soundscape music, So anyways, you know how we had said we had seen them live and you had no idea what they were playing and what they were doing, and because they looked like they were holding guitars, but it didn't sound like a guitar. So they also, in addition to, this is separate from Frippertronics and delay pedals and things like this, is a guitar synth, and it's a synthesizer. We often think of as a keyboard instrument, but through this device, you can make your guitar sound like a keyboard. And
Okay. Yeah.
So you're just using the guitar to activate the synthesizers.
Yeah.
And Roland
and Adrian Belew likes to play with this too on stage.
Sure.
He was doing something.
Oh yeah, they both do. Both
yeah.
Belew and Robert Fripp use it extensively.
All right. Okay.
And so it just opens up a whole nother. Again, you're essentially able to get synthesizer sounds, but play your guitar doing it.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
All right. Discipline is the final song. I don't have much to say about that.
I don't either. It's the title track of the album, Discipline. It's a very nice instrumental. But after the first 6 songs, it sort of just closes the album out, I think.
Yeah. So but I say it's gutsy because, you produce an album like this and the last 12 minutes of it are instrumental songs.
Right.
Yeah. It's basically the whole second side is an instrumental, other than the 6-minute, where he gets accosted on the street.
Right. I just don't think, I think there's an artistic element to this album, and not a real commercial idea like, hey, we're gonna get a number one. I don't think they were thinking they were getting a number one record or anything.
I don't think Adrian Belew would have minded that. I don't think Robert Fripp, that was ever in his.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
because Adrian Belew in one of his solo albums does a song. Are you aware?
No.
You're aware I'm going?
I don't.
So Adrian Belew does a song, and I don't know the title of the song, but it was basically the genesis of the song was that his daughter asked him if he was a rock star, why had he never heard of him?
Right.
And So he wrote a song about that. So I think he wouldn't have minded.
Just to impress his daughter.
Right. Yeah.
But I think it's the same with kids these days.
So we actually
like you
saw
keep telling
this.
your kids how important you are.
Right. Well, I am. I'm a big deal. I don't know if you know about that.
There is an expanded edition of this album. It's of Discipline that has an alternate take of Mate Kudasi, which is equally beautiful but different. And it has the whole story of Thelahan Ginji in it, in Adrian Belew's voice. And it has exactly kind of what you said.
Yeah.
And then at the end, it's like a 15-minute studio jam, so you kind of hear them playing through some of these songs, but in a less structured manner.
I would again say that if you want to dig into this more, probably a better use of your time is finding some of King Crimson's live albums. I think their live stuff is just amazing, and they explore the songs a little more. We actually saw this iteration of King Crimson.
Yeah, we did.
Like 1983 or something.
Whenever, they came through town and we saw this show.
I had for a long time a Discipline shirt, concert shirt. I actually hopelessly tried to look for it to see if it still existed.
To see if it still fit. Did you look in your bandana collection?
Right. Yeah. All right, let's move on. So let's wrap this up with landmark album, perfect album.
Okay. So, I love. I mean, I think it's a perfect album. I think there's no song that I want to skip over when I listen to this album.
No. You almost have to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a great album.
Yeah.
And there's only 7 songs, so they took my advice. Like, if you want a perfect album, don't put 14 tracks on it, because one of them's going to be weaker.
And it's 7 songs, but it's like 38 minutes, I think,
each
the whole
song,
album.
even
It's
though,
not that long.
Right, even though they're
album.
extended songs, each song's maybe 6 minutes long. None of them, go for 20 minutes or anything.
The Sheltering Sky, I think, is 8 is the longest.
That's the longest one, yeah. So, I mean, they're all reasonable. They're not radio-friendly lengths necessarily, but they're listenable.
Well worth the time.
Yeah. So then you asked me about landmark album.
By the way, that's your term.
No, I know
you
it is.
You changed it originally.
Well, because it was better than what we said before.
We had great album.
We had great album.
Right.
Right, but when you used the term great album, you meant landmark album.
Right.
You didn't just mean it was an album that we really liked.
All right. This is episode 14, by the way. Go on. You're going to change landmark again?
No, I'm not going to change anything. But this is what I'm thinking, because landmark the term landmark is used. We didn't invent that word. I didn't invent that word. And I think it tends to lean towards albums of historical significance. So when you talk about albums that changed music, that started, they were the beginning of something, and then as you have so eloquently stated in the past, you've explained this idea. Yeah. So Bob Dylan, I think, for you was changed music in this. So you think a particular album is a landmark album.
Right.
So. And I've always, through our 14 episodes, been a little more liberal with that, because I like going with the idea of historical importance, cultural importance, and aesthetic importance. And so when you were asking me about landmark album, those are the things that I'm thinking of, not just the historical aspect of it. So I think it's a landmark album in terms of its aesthetic importance. You have this collection of amazing musicians. They're setting. They're doing something that, although we draw comparisons to Rush and we draw comparisons to Talking Heads, I still think they're their own thing. Like you said, King Crimson's almost a genre unto themselves. And each of these, in each of these musicians individually have had endless influence on the landscape of music.
Yep.
And I think this band, too, has had a great deal of influence.
Sure.
So I think it's a landmark album in that sense. Did it create a whole new genre of music? Did it make music go in a completely different direction? Maybe not. But I think it's a really important, great album. And so I put it, so I don't, this is where maybe we need another term.
So I would say it's a perfect album.
Yeah.
But I'd also say that the influence of this album is the collective of the 3-album kind of suite.
Well, I would say the same thing also. So if we do Beat next week, only one of these can be landmark.
Right.
Or
3 of a perfect pair. I mean, so you take that together.
The 3 of them, I agree with you. The 3 together, taken as a trilogy, I guess, are landmark. It's a landmark collection of albums, and I would agree to that.
And you want to hear all those great songs together by Absent Lover, the live album.
Okay.
Recorded in 1984. Seriously.
All right.
So it's so I agree with you in that sense, and I don't know how you kind of classify this. I mean, I don't know how anybody says. I don't know the term we would use to kind of really rate this or grade this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping for some crowdsourcing here.
Yeah,
I'm hoping we have some creative, some people out there that come up with that term.
I do think the 3 albums together is a landmark music.
And I agree with that.
Yeah. All right. Okay. We got to move on. Next up, we have a live read. Figured this would be an issue. Oh, look at that. All right.
No, that's not it. Two Fat Guys in an Album is sponsored by Deeper Connections Counseling, helping people connect to themselves, the people they love, and the world around them through individual and couples therapy for Illinois residents, both in person and online. More information at dcctherapy.com.
Yeah, and if I've said this once, I've said it 100 times, or at least 14.
14 for sure.
Yeah. You're worth it. Your relationships are worth it. The saddest thing, especially being a guy, we tend to not seek help or think we can solve all of our own problems. It's our nature to want to fix things. We think we can do it. Sometimes that fixing requires us sourcing some information. If you're trying to figure out how to replace that garbage disposal, you might go to YouTube and watch a video. Your relationships are worth more than a YouTube video. Not that I have anything against YouTube, but I think you reach out and get some help. Find somebody to talk to, and this is that's in general. If you're in the Chicagoland area, these are great people to talk to.
Illinois, because they can do remote as well.
Yeah, so all of Illinois, awesome.
Yep.
So anywhere in this great state, you can reach out to them. But if you're not in this state, find somebody to reach out to.
Hey, Two Fat Guys in an Album fans. This is Diane Blackburn, realtor with Baird & Warner and proud sponsor of this podcast. I pride myself in being committed to serve as a trusted real estate advisor for all my clients. Whether you're looking to sell, buy, rent, or lease, feel free to reach out and let's chat about how we can work together to make it happen. If you're watching, scan the QR code for my website or give me a call at 630-638-1999. See you on the flip side.
Are you someone who needs help with their Instagram or TikTok? Well, you're in luck. LR Media is here to help. Email me at laurarose2003@aol.com to get started. Let's make your social media shine.
All right. So rolling into side 2 of our album. It seems like much more than side 2 at this point. So we talk about stuff that's maybe coming up, shows we're looking forward to, music we're listening to, new music. I actually don't have a whole lot this other than something to poke you in the eye with, and then a new song that I think is worth listening to. But
okay.
I don't have too much else.
Well, I've got quite a few.
All right.
I've had some free time.
Yeah.
So earlier in the previous podcast, I don't know how many ago it is. It's all a blur to me. But I had mentioned Ringo Starr had come out with a country album. Yeah. That is a #1 album in the UK country charts right now, country and Americana. He hit #1. This is the first solo album by Ringo Starr to go #1. So it's pretty amazing.
Have you listened to it?
I have. Yeah.
And?
It's a very traditional country album. I don't think it's breaking any new ground, but it's very pleasant. Ringo Starr, you smirk at this.
I just wondered about
you're
pickup trucks and
you're going to have to listen. No, it's a much nicer album than that. Ringo Starr has always been a fan of country music.
Yeah,
all the way back to pre-Beatle days. Like he would have, I'm not going to say he would have rather have been a country star than a Beatle, because I think being a Beatle worked out pretty good
well for everybody.
But I think if he aspired to be a country star. That's what he wanted to do. This is music that is in his heart and soul. So this isn't weird. This is not even his first country album.
And
it's a Billboard 147. It's top album sales. I'm just saying he's had very good
is there
success.
a song or something you can recommend off of
Produced and co-written by Bone Burnett. Okay, who's a very there's a title track called "Look Up." Guest artists include Billy Strings, Molly Tuttle, Lucius, Alison Krauss, and Larkin Poe. You should listen to the album before you smirk.
I'm asking for a recommended song. I don't think I can do a whole album.
Look, just put the album.
Is he singing or is he just
Yes.
playing? Oh my God! All right.
Maybe have you ever thought of listening and finding out information before you judge? Have you ever considered that, or do you always just judge things first?
I tend to judge first.
Okay, well, it's at least. That counseling's been paying off.
Yeah.
So it's not gonna. He could win a Grammy for this album. No, just brace yourself.
Great.
He could win a Grammy for this album. It's a very traditional country album. Kind of a 70s, 80s sounding country. I mean, he's an old guy. He's been around for a while. It's not new and fresh, but he has a lot of new, fresh people on it. The songs are charming. Ringo Starr's charming.
He is.
And if you like Ringo Starr, I believe you would like this album.
We saw, maybe last year or 2 years ago, we saw Ringo Starr's All-Star Band. Yeah. And there's a second drummer.
Yes.
That's in this group.
I wish I could remember his name, but he's a stud drummer. He's a big time stud.
But
drummer.
it was fun to watch him because they were like doing the same beat.
Yes.
And this drummer was
working his tail off.
Working. He was sweating. He was hammering away.
Yeah.
And Ringo was just being Ringo.
It was effortless.
And
for
it was
him.
totally. I mean, it was just so amazing that they're doing the same thing, and one of them is just not moving, absolutely smooth.
Yeah.
I remember watching Clapton on stage just destroying a guitar, and
it never moved an
and
inch.
It looked like he was bored.
Right, exactly.
And he's just shredding it.
Yeah, Ringo's kind of like that too.
Yeah.
The other funny thing about that concert, we had seen a previous show, and I don't remember who it was, but we didn't like it that much. It was one of our least favorite concerts of the year. And then we saw Ringo right after that, and it was. I just remember saying, this is exactly what I thought Ringo Starr's concert was going to be like. It was fun. There was a lot of great music. The All-Star Band was great. And I just had a great time at that concert.
It was honestly much better than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Much better.
Very entertaining.
Yes.
Goose, who I've been on the Goose trail for a while, they've got a second single out from their new album, which is coming out April 25th, called Give It Time.
Nice.
And I really like this single too. And from both of these, so Goose is a jam, I would say a jam band.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
And they have, I can't pull the song right now, but they had a fairly popular song a couple years ago.
I love me a jam band.
Yeah. And then saw them live, wear a gas mask or some sort of breathing device if you go see them indoors live, because it gets smoky in there. But I like these.
I'm assuming that's all the the stage effect.
It didn't
smoke.
seem to be this. No, because it was coming from the people
Behind
like
you.
behind. Yeah. It wasn't. But the thing I like about these songs is they're really good songs by themselves.
Yeah.
You know, I really like them as songs, and I'm assuming, you know, when they get to the live version of it, you know, it's a 4-minute radio song that's going to be 20 minutes long, but the 4-minute radio songs are good on their own, and so I'm really liking the new Goose songs. Here's another one. Do you know the band The Thing?
Yeah.
You do?
Well, they actually came up on the podcast.
Oh, okay. I don't recall.
I don't remember. Yeah, go on.
Okay.
Maybe when you tell me, I'll...
Well, they have a song called Dave's TV, which is a really great song. There's sort of a psychedelic rock so they're hard to characterize for me. They're like in this indie singer songs, you know, blah, 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 everything.
Yeah.
But they remind me of the Doors a little bit. They
exactly.
remind me of Spiritualized a little bit with the musical grooves and everything. But they have an interesting approach. First of all, I like the song Dave's TV quite a bit. So The Thing, Dave's TV, check it out.
Yep.
But they are going through the process of releasing their new album, but they're releasing it 2 songs at a time.
Yeah.
So they're with an A side and a B side, and they're going to release 2 songs every month until the whole album's completed, which I think is a really interesting approach.
I believe it was they got overshadowed. I mentioned them.
Okay.
As when they first put out their first song, but they were overshadowed because the other album I was talking about at that time was Car Seat Headrest.
Yeah, and that just...
And I'm...
enamored.
Totally enamored. Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, and the particular song you brought up by them was just epic and phenomenal.
Yeah, can't wait to see Car Seat Headrest. I will probably have a Car Seat Headrest shirt on at some point. Yeah. So, anyways, and they got derailed by Car Seat Headrest. But I'm going to listen to Dave's TV. I remember enjoying the band very much. I was excited to bring them up, and then
it got
sidetracked.
Yeah. Right. So I could go on, but I've got. But
you can't.
I can say these.
You might have to save a couple.
Yeah, nothing that's pressing.
Yeah. So I just have one. Mega Circuit was a song that was just released or a couple weeks ago now. Was just released by Japanese Breakfast. And the more I hear Japanese Breakfast, the more. And this is like a Mountain Goats thing where it's a person, not a band. Yeah. Right. Well, she's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And it's a fun poppy song.
Yeah, she's got a great voice.
Yeah.
We should learn her name if you're going to keep bringing it up.
Well, and also what actually surprised me is that she booked, or they booked, or whatever it is, Japanese Breakfast is booked for 3 shows at the Salt Shed in Chicago, which is a 5,000 seat.
5,000 is not a small place.
And 2 of them are sold out. And I was like, well, this is what got me to look a little harder. I couldn't figure out how they sell out.
Yeah, the interesting thing to me about Japanese Breakfast is it's a side project. Because the person, I think the person's an actress.
Yeah, I think
that's
you're
their
right.
day job.
Yeah.
And so they're selling out shows at Salt Shed for funsies.
Right. The final thing I want to bring up, and then we got to jump, is Imagine Dragons.
Okay. It's a band. It's a very well-known band.
Who was when I discussed the argument that rock is dead, they were one of the bands you kind of threw back at me saying, Imagine Dragons out here putting rock music out.
Yeah, I hope we get to revisit this conversation again.
It will,
but
because it's what we hear a lot from our listeners about that conversation.
Yeah, because whatever you're about to say is going to be nonsense, but go on.
So they just dropped a song.
Right, so you just cherry-picked a song.
No, they just released a new song called Dare You.
Right.
And it's nothing. I shared it with you.
It's not their song. It's a collaboration
blah, blah, blah.
with... It's not blah, blah, blah,
blah. Blah, blah, blah.
This is why you're annoying. It's not their song. They're collaborating with... do you even know who they're collaborating with?
You couldn't pronounce it.
Choppa?
No,
you couldn't pronounce Choppa.
That's not it.
It is it.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Oh, God.
All right. So anyways, it's not
So you're cherry picking a song that they are just sort of collaborating on with a rapper that's an actual rap song, and you're using that as evidence that rock is dead. This is so pathetic. This is the most pathetic move you've ever pulled.
So with
you
that,
know how we
got
talk about how you bring up evidence that has nothing to do with your point? This would be example number one.
All right. So we're going to have to leave it there, and we're going to flip to the next album and go to side 3. We'll be right back after these messages from a couple more sponsors.
This episode of Two Fat Guys in an Album is brought to you by Smidge Films. If you're looking to bring your ideas to life with some cool cinematic work, Smidge Films has you covered. From brand stories to promos, we'll help you tell your story in a way that really sticks. Check us out and see what we can do for you.
So side 3 is our Beyond Classic Rock, where we talk about our search for the modern classics, and I'm excited about this one. The album we're going to talk about a little bit is by the new Pornographers from May 2003, so 22 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Old enough
which
to
is
drink.
Scary, yeah. Right before my youngest daughter was born.
Oh boy.
yeah. And it's called Electric Version. Then we can talk a little bit about the band, but it's an alt rock band. I think they're similar to like Spoon, the Decemberists, maybe Guided by Voices, kind of in that sort of vein.
Okay.
I hear.
They're poppy. They're definitely poppy.
They're power pop.
I
totally.
think I hear Spoon in there the most.
Well, I definitely hear an influence of, and I'm curious if you heard this or if you agree with this or don't. But I hear a lot of influence from like REM.
Sure. Yeah,
I
think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
You kind of. So if you change the singer, a lot of these could have been on an REM album.
Okay, I'll accept that.
But it's Pitchfork called them peppy and gleeful and headstrong guitar pop.
Yeah,
I would put them firmly in power pop.
Yes, absolutely. Power pop,
fun. I actually very much like this album, and there's a couple of songs I want to kind of point to as good examples for our listeners, maybe to go back and
check out.
Yeah, but this is their second album.
Yes,
their first album was Mass Romantic, and to me that album is so widely acclaimed that I didn't know we should waste it on the Beyond Classic Rock, or if that should be a main album we talk about sometime down the road. Because it is like it's ranked in like Rolling Stone.
Yeah. Well, the Electric Version is Rolling. They're put this album as the 79th best album of the decade. So that's something.
No, this is phenomenal.
I remember when new Pornographers came out, and they were kind of all the rage. I'm not. Like they're a little too happy for me, quite honestly. Little too poppy, a little too happy. I don't think you can skip over the band, though. I think we really do have to talk about the band.
Well, they've been described as a supergroup.
A supergroup, which that's our King Crimson, right? They match up with King Crimson.
Right.
But I also think I think it's kind of ridiculous to call them a supergroup, quite honestly. But Nico Case, who I'm assuming is the reason why you like this band in the first place.
Wow. Go
Tell
on.
me I'm wrong.
Go on.
Okay. Is the female voice of this song, and she's spectacular. She's tremendous. Really outstanding. And then Carl Newman, also AC Newman, he goes by more, he kind of goes back and forth between the two names. who was in a different band that nobody's ever heard of. And then Daniel Behar is kind of the third main person who was also in a band that nobody ever heard of. So I cannot call this a super group.
Super musicians.
Yeah,
really
it's a
musicians.
really terrific group. But yeah.
So...
like, let's compare the personnel of the supergroup New Pornographers with the supergroup King Crimson. This is not the same definition.
No, I get it. Nobody played with Zappa.
Nonetheless, it's a harmless album.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Nico Case does steal the show as far as I'm concerned.
But I mean, there's like 5-part harmonies and there's synthesizers.
Well, testament to youth and verse that's the harmony we're talking about. I love that's a favorite.
I was gonna say there's got to be a bunch of stuff here that you really like musically in this, even if the genre is too happy.
It's
for you.
A little
poppy for you.
Poppy. It's just it doesn't. It's not as thoughtful as I like it to be musically or lyrically, but it's fine. Again, Testament to Youth. It's a 2 favorite album for me. All right, Testament to Youth and Verse, which has the choral vocal, the part that is awesome. I love that song. The Laws Have Changed, the 3rd song on the album. I like quite a bit.
Yeah, that's probably. That might be the best song.
Yeah, so it's a terrific song. Mm-hmm. And listening to this, because again, we were around, this is an album that I remember when it came out, and I've been following music my whole life, and I just knew Pornographers. It was like, a good radio song, but I never went any deeper with them. But it did make me think.
But you like REM.
They're not anywhere close to REM in terms of quality.
All right.
I mean, I think REM's a far superior band.
Well, yeah.
I wouldn't even use them in the same sentence, other than if you want to draw a comp and they sound REM-esque, I'm okay with that.
Well, you can see where REM influenced kind of the music, the songwriting.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to argue that point. I just think they're also not REM.
But REM was poppy.
Yeah, but they were
sad enough.
They
for
were
you?
sadder.
All right.
Yeah,
all right.
they had a little more edge to them. They had quite a bit more edge to them.
I will try and find a darker album next time.
No, it's okay, but it's a happy song. No, I think we do a lot of dark albums, quite honestly, and a lot of heavy albums. So why not? Why not the New Pornographers? They're fine.
So I like a fun album every so often. I like fun music, and I have different. I'm sort of known as the music guy, much like you are. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, people look to me for music, and this I think is one of those bands that when we're looking to have a good barbecue album.
Right. See, that's where
I love
you lose me. No, and you can have. Look, again, I have nothing against dance music. Like, I have nothing against anybody's personal preference of music, and sometimes you want a song that makes you feel good, and you want a song to tap your toe to and have a beverage to. So I have believe me, I am not judging on that merit. It's just as the 79th album of the decade. I didn't say that. No, Rolling Stone did.
And it's not even their best album. I think Mass Romantic is so good.
Yeah.
Which I'm a little surprised we had an off-air discussion about if Mass Romantic was an album we could do in the
is it a main album or is it a Beyond Classic
and
rock
you
album?
Were you scoffed
put it
heavily.
In the comments, because I'd really like to know what people think about it. I don't know.
I would say if based on my recommendation, if somebody wanted to try a song or two off of this, The Laws Have Changed is very, very good. Mm-hmm. But I think It's Only Divine Right is a good song to listen to.
Yeah.
And then From Blown Speakers, I would say any of those three you want to kind of you'll capture the
Check
whole
it out.
vibe of the different kind of sounds in the album. I think is captured by those 3 songs.
And I like the video for The Laws Have Changed, by the way. So if you're on YouTube and you want to just pull up a cool music video
after the
once
pod
the
is
right
over.
once the pod, of course.
Yeah.
But you just said something interesting actually about if you wanted to listen to a couple songs, and I think this is where I think that's a really good point. It might have been the smartest thing you've said in several episodes. Because when I get, when you recommend these albums that I really haven't listened to, and I usually just start and put the album on and listen to it straight through, and I'm thinking that's probably not the best way to consume a new album. Like when you normally find out about an album, you usually find out about a song on that album, and it's a single, and it's played, and it gets pointed out, this is a really great song. And then maybe you hear another song, and you like that song, and then you dive deeper into the album from there. So I think that's going to be my new process, actually, is to not, like, even when we're recommending a whole album, you start with a couple songs, get to know those songs first, and then go a little bit deeper. And I think it would actually make albums that I'm less familiar with a little more accessible. Be like dipping the toe in the water first.
I will try and do that for you as well.
I think it's just something that I can't, it kind of just came to realize. And
very cool. Very cool. All right. So I'm going to go with you don't find this to be a perfect album.
No, not at all. I do think all the songs are fine. It's a perfectly harmless album. I don't know why
it's not a perfect album. It's a fine album.
It's fine. It's fine. It won't hurt you.
No.
If you like the new Pornographers, I know there's people out there who are huge fans of them, and I don't.
If you like upbeat, happy music, and you don't want to be sad all the time, like Maestro.
For sure. Yeah, listen to new Pornographers.
Right.
I agree.
That's awesome.
But like I said, I don't dislike any. There's no songs on this album that I like. I don't like this song. Like I like all the songs. All the songs are hums. They're just very. I don't.
Same for you?
No, just too not interesting. Too vanilla. Just too.
So, you're not really a power pop guy.
I'm not so much a power pop guy, but I do have two. It is two favorites for sure. Laws Have Changed and Testament to Youth and Verse. Those are favorites.
Nice.
Those are, there. I like Ballad of a Comeback Kid.
Yep.
Also, I like the first track, electric version.
Yep.
I like Chump Change. I actually like all the
Behar
songs.
Yeah.
I tend towards those. And then Nico Case's vocals.
So what the Maestro's alluding to is that the songs are written or sung by
Yes,
people.
they're written by them. And So. And to me, Nico Case makes it worth listening to.
100%.
So I'm there with that.
Yeah.
So it's a perfectly fine, harmless album that you may listen to when you don't really care what you're listening to.
Nice barbecue music. All right. Awesome. I agree. It's not it's not a perfect album. There's nothing wrong with any of the songs, but it's just not. I think this band has its time and place, and in my rotation for exactly what we're kind of talking about, the happier times.
Yeah.
They're a great band, and
you don't want to listen
Spoon or Decemberists or something, or a little bit.
You don't want to put on the Dark Side of the Moon when you're on your yacht or having in the.
You got your
so there's a time
Van
and
Morrison when you're on your yacht, I assume.
There is time and a place for everything.
You walked into that one.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, speaking of Van Morrison.
Yeah. All right. So let's flip this over one more time to side 4. And so this is your job here in side 4 is ranking the albums. So now we're going to see where Discipline slots in.
Discipline, I will tell you where that comes in.
Where the 14 albums we've covered.
This is the one thing that I'm least qualified to do. Because I don't really think of them in terms of ranking so much the way you do. And yet I play along for the good of the
show.
Yeah. Moondance remains number 1 by Van Morrison.
Of course.
And then this album, again, is interesting to discuss as we did, because it's really part of a trilogy of great albums. But I do like this specific album quite a lot. It doesn't have the historical significance of like The Doors or Aqualung or London Calling. So, those albums are still, holding that top spot. I've got it actually at 9 right now out of the 14 albums we've listened to. I have it probably surprised to just about everybody ahead of OK Computer, which I have 10th on the list, and I have it behind Brothers in Arms at 8.
Well, you are right with the you aren't qualified to put together this list.
Yeah, no, I had completely, I'm just doing this for funsies.
Yeah, no, it is an interesting one, because you're right, and you say, okay, it's 9th on your list out of the 14. Album, which doesn't sound really good, but we have done 14.
Right, all the albums we talk about are great albums.
Yeah, so I think that's probably a fair placement.
Right.
So I'll leave it there.
Good.
With that, I think we'll announce next week we're going to do
Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here.
Yeah. Like, wow.
It was.
Yeah. I don't. That's going to be another, I think, long show to talk.
Well, yeah, we'll try to condense all that information. The only thing I'll suggest to both of us is we'll probably talk about Pink Floyd more than once.
Sure.
So, I don't know. The band talk, I don't know.
Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah. And there's a lot. A lot of these bands we've talked about, there's been books written about them.
Yep.
So, yeah. All right. So, next week it's Wish You Were Here. That'll be our episode 15. We, as always, would like to thank our director and our editor, and does a tremendous amount of work. If you have an opportunity to watch these on YouTube, all the little effects you see in the background, and
the YouTube videos are really fun.
And that's Chauncey from Smidge Films. If you have some production work, or you need some editing, or need somebody to help you with the podcast, I would reach out to Smidge Films. Could not be happier with what they're doing, and apparently he hobnobs with elite musicians. So give Chauncey a call. Also, would like to thank our PR team from LR Media. Does all of kind of our shorts and puts our stuff out on TikTok and Instagram and elsewhere.
All the other things we don't actually understand.
There you go. And then, of course, our sponsors, Deeper Connection Counseling, Diane Blackburn from Beard & Warner Films, or Beard & Warner Real Estate, Beard & Warner.
Big.
Yeah, a lot going on there. Smidge Films, LR Media. I am Fat Guy 1.
Fat Guy 2.
We'll see you next week.
Can't even believe you did that.
Well,
usually you try a little bit.
Really
usually you try a little harder.
We're pressed up against time. That's like we talked about that album for an hour.
Well, there's a lot to talk. I mean, it's good when there's material,
Yeah.
And but here's the thing: we talked about for more than an hour, and I mean, that's not like I had nothing written down. Like, that's an hour of talking.